And welcome back to another episode of Always Almost There, Day After Show Live. We are here today to talk about a momentous occasion in Goose history. Yes, that's right. Goose is an amphitheater band. Last night, they made their debut at Saratoga Performing Arts Center. Legendary SPAC, hallowed in the music world, in the jam band world, what have you. Biggest headlining gig that they have ever played. So much happened. And we have some great guests here to talk about it today. Unfortunately, Neil is still on his way back home and was unable to join us. But we've got Colin Fredrickson and Mike Rogie, who were both at the show last night, and special guest Brian Brinkman with the Couch Report. How's it going, everybody?
It's going well. Thank you for having us. I'm stoked to talk with you guys and hear what it was like inside of the shed. Amazing stuff.
Mike, Colin, what about you guys?
I'm doing great, buddy. I'm in the van heading back to California. Had a good 4-week run here and decided the best way to end my time back in my hometown and my home region of upstate New York was to see our friends from Connecticut absolutely crush a venue that I've been going to since I was about 6 years old. So it was pretty awesome.
Perfect. Colin, how are you doing? Can we hear you? Colin has a bit of a spotty service out there in upstate New York, so hopefully it pulls through and we can talk about it. But let's get into pre-show vibe a little bit. I'm excited. I was at the show as well last night. It was just absolutely incredible. Getting to SPAC, being like, holy shit, Goose is playing this venue, where I was just at a few weeks ago for Dead & Co., where there were so many people, and it was like, insane. But everyone was just so excited pre-show yesterday. I talked about it a little bit in my written review of the show that I posted this morning, but a lot of the big Goose shows over the past year and a half or so have felt like there's a lot of people seeing their first Goose show. And last night did not feel like that. It felt like it was 12,000 people or so. That was the number that was being thrown around. 12,000 people or so that knew the band, that were ready, like, just for an incredible night of music and to celebrate how far Goose has come. But Colin, how are you feeling before the show last night?
Yeah, we got up to SPAC pretty early, parked in like one of the side lots, and then we were able to catch sound check just like chilling in the woods, which is awesome. And just like the venue is so beautiful. I've seen a ton of shows there, so it was really cool to kind of be able to see Goose there and get the whole atmosphere of like the state park, the trees, and just be able to get in there early and catch sound check as well.
Yeah, soundcheck was cool. Heard a little bit from the parking lot. This Old Sea, Factory Fiction, like, immediately got very excited about both of those. Mike, how are you feeling pre-show yesterday?
I was feeling great. Spent the morning on Lake George with some friends and family. Got down to the venue around like 2:00. Ran into my 70-plus-year-old father-in-law who was at his like 30th Goose show, I think.
Nice.
It was fun, like Mountain Gazette, at least the current iteration of the magazine that we run. Our roots are here. Our art director John Coleman was there. You got to meet him running last night, and it was very cool to run into in the parking lot. Just like, it's crazy, man. Because I grew up here and like SPAC was such a big part of my life. Ran into like teachers, friends from elementary school, like friends from college, Goose fans, like people that I met at the Warfield out in San Francisco, people that I know from Lake Tahoe. Like, I definitely agree with you, Ryan. It really felt like these were a lot of people who have been fans of this band for quite some time. And it was strange to be in a crowd that big and recognize so many people.
Yeah.
That part was very, very cool and interesting. I don't know that I've ever had that experience at SPAC before.
Awesome. Well, Brian, you were on the couch last night, of course. You're out there in beautiful Colorado. But how are you feeling before the show tomorrow? And, what was the vibe like on the couch?
The vibe is always good. We had the television set up in the back patio, and we're
yeah,
chilling here, enjoying a summer night. My thoughts were really from like a historical context standpoint. I was thinking a lot about it's difficult not to make the comparisons to where Goose is at right now to where Fish was at in the mid early 90s. I think about one of my first Fish tapes was 6/26/95 from SPAC, which was this really big show for the band. They were on their summer 95 tour. They were selling out amphitheaters. They'd been making these like big headways over the previous 2 years in terms of leveling up venues. And they play this show that has this really defining musical segment in the second set that really showcases where they were at that point in time. And for me, you know, as a early Fish fan getting my first tapes, it was like anytime I saw SPAC anywhere, in
Right.
terms of like it being notated on a set list when they returned there 9 years later for those Father's Day shows in 2004, excellent shows from that year. SPAC carried a little bit extra panache. It had there was a vibe to just seeing that a show was happening there. I finally went there in 2010. I returned in 2014, I believe, and saw those two runs. And it's just like everyone said on the call, it's a beautiful venue. The lot has a really cool vibe because you're in the woods. There's a lot of historic mystique to being there. And, so walking into the venue, it also sounds beautiful, especially if you're inside of the pavilion. It's one of the best sounding rooms I've ever been in. The lawn has its challenges, but can be really fun depending on where you're sitting.
Yeah.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with the lawn statement because I will say SPAC has totally changed. They've done a renovation the last few years, so the lawn has. I agree with you. It used to just be kind of it was like listening to a band that was playing in a closed garage.
Yes.
But they've done some renovations. They've actually, if you can remember, Brian, when you were there, when you get to the top of that arcing point, the apex, flattens out. There's some vendors there. That lawn now has speakers as well. And
oh, wow.
That's actually become like more of a family zone. I actually saw a lot of more kids than I've ever seen at a Goose show ever last night. Like I'm saying like hundreds maybe. And what's cool is they are like super far away. So yeah, that lawn specter was really cool. And I spoke to a couple friends that were on the lawn last night thinking like, wow, man, like you love this band like almost more than I do. And like they were like, dude, they wanted the vibe. They wanted that, as you said, that 90s Fish vibe when they first saw Fish there. From the historical standpoint, I think I was looking up some stats. So the biggest show that's ever been there is Grateful Dead in '85, year I was born, 40,000 plus. Dave Matthews Band has sold out the venue the most amount of times, which is 11 times. Fish has the record for most shows. They played 20 times there. And then I have a list. I'm not going to read it, but basically,
there is a list.
any popular musical act. We're talking like from New York City Ballet to like John Mellencamp and Hootie and the Bluefish and Britney Spears and Jay-Z. Like, we are not just talking about a little niche of like some jam bands that have played it. Like, totally. This is a big venue. Almost every genre of music. And I find that to be like, that was a special part, man. Like Whitney Houston recorded 2 music videos on stage at SPAC. One of them was I Want to Dance with Somebody.
That's so cool.
Like, it is sick. I'm so proud of these guys for selling out the Cap and Radio City and Red Rocks and Hollywood Bowl. But this was the biggest show they've ever done. And I think for upstate New Yorkers, like, it's the point of pride that we got to welcome. The comment that a friend made to me last night is, guys from Goose might be the first kids from the Northeast to see shows at SPAC and then go on.
Oh, yeah. That's a great point.
Me, like, I don't think Mellencamp.
That's a great point, Mike, about that. And, Peter mentioned about that, and he had posted an Instagram earlier in the day, kind of shouting out, like, seeing Fish, at SPAC a decade ago. And, it was really, really cool. But yeah, I as I mentioned, just felt like a real community moment last night coming in. My parents and I were like one section back from the pit, Trevor side. So amazing sight line of the stage, great sound, and just a great vantage point also to just look around and take in like, holy shit, Goose is playing at a venue of this size and it's full. Like going in, I was not sure how many people were going to be on the lawn. I knew the pavilion was sold. I knew that was going to be full, but I was blown away by how many people were on the lawn as well. Like that's like, I mean, seeing Goose in that venue with that many people, like, holy shit.
Yeah, all the shots on the webcast from behind the band looking out to the crowd, it looked like a full. I don't know what it looked like in there, but it looked full on the screen. Which, like,
Mhm.
every time they would show Rick mid solo with people with their arms up, but then they'd show out to the lawn. I mean, I just got chills, and I'm getting chills thinking about it because, Mike, you just said it. Like, I was at the Red Rock show out here. My first Goose tape was an Albany Fall 19 tape from some bar. You could hear individual people calling out songs. You knew on the tape the first time you heard it that this band like has something that's more than a bar band. You don't know what it's going to be. You don't want to be hyperbolic. You don't want to, be unfair to the band's development and predict that they're going to go to certain places. But you knew that something big was going to come to this group.
Yeah.
The pandemic comes, as you laid out, Mohegan, all these big runs, the Trey stuff that happened all last year. Like, there's been a lot of big moments. To see them then with that many people in front of them, and it's them. It's not a double bill. This is their show. Everybody's showing up for their show on a single night. It was unbelievable to see, regardless of any notes of music to play that was played. Like, just to see that happen for this band, I felt so good.
Amazing. Colin, you got anything to add to all this, the pre-show stuff?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that show from Fall 19. That was one of the things. I went to the show with my dad, and he was like, "Man, they've really come a long way from playing the Parish House and with Eggy in 19."
Right.
And like we walked back out from we were in the balcony. We walked back out, and just like the lawn was pretty packed out, and it was pretty amazing to see that kind of slowly build up from when we got in pretty early. So yeah, it was pre-show was awesome, and then yeah, like kind of looking back at where Goose has come from to where they landed last night was a really fun journey, at least for our crew.
Yeah, amazing.
I wanted to add that I didn't get a chance to head over, but the Shakedown Street at Dead & Co. was bigger than the Washington or Warren County fairs that I grew up going to. It was massive.
Yeah.
But I heard from a friend that there's some momentum building for Wisteria Lanes. Like, something's happening. Like, I saw a friend's little sister who had made some like custom silver goose jewelry and was like selling that in the parking lot. Like, it looked like there were some vendors out there. Like, I am, the Dead & Co. show. I went to that Sunday show a couple weeks ago. It was almost bittersweet because you're like, man, is there ever going to be a band that can pack out this parking lot, with these vendors? And I'm not, as you said, Brian, like, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic or anything like that, but you do kind of dream a little bit for the kids from Connecticut. Like, could they be? Just
Hopefully,
the pre-show. The pre-show is a big.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully, Mike's connection comes back in a little bit. But let's dive into the show here. Let's start talking about the music. Let's start off this first set: Silver Rising, California Magic, Animal. Great way to start the first set. Get the energy going. I love Silver Rising as an opener. I think the only other time it's opened a show was 2/12/22, the Pittsburgh show. Also, fun fact, Silver Rising has a 100% opener rate at shows that Jeff shouts me out at. So that's a funny stat. But these first three songs were fun. Crowd was going, and this was really just, I think the band was also taking it in, getting settled in the bigger, in the really big room. But taking a second to settle in, kind of, no extended jamming right out of the gate, and just have a great time. Colin, what were your thoughts on these first three songs?
Yeah, just a great start to the show, and kind of like was a preview of just like that pure execution of the set list, and really felt that kind of like gradual build into Animal with Silver Rising and California Magic, and just kind of get everyone on board and ready for the night. So it was really solid start, at least for those first three songs, and a lot of fun.
Amazing. Mike, what were your thoughts on these first three tunes?
So Silver Rising opener, I gotta say, like, Upstate New York has a big dive. Oh no, I hope.
His signal was
Oh,
perfect
that's what
until
you
we
said.
went live. That's how this works. Well, let's throw it over to you here, Brian, on these first three tunes. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a great way to start it. I mean, I was texting with a couple of buddies before the show started about what our predictions were for the show opener, and we kept coming back to Drive. We thought that that was ultimately going to be it. They hadn't played it in a couple shows. It's just got that like big rock intro to it. Um, the thing I found interesting about Silver Rising was I remember, I think it was an interview that Rick and Peter did with Stephen Hayden about a year or so ago, where they talked specifically about playing bigger rooms and playing ballads and how they were allowing the space in these bigger rooms to really give their ballads a ton of weight and a ton of space, and that they felt that maybe some of these ballads didn't work as well in bars, but were working as they leveled up into the next rooms. And so it felt kind of symbolic for me that they would open their biggest show ever and their first shed show like this with a ballad, and a ballad that obviously builds to a huge peak towards the back end of it, but a very mellow start. It's one of my favorite recent songs, and they played it in the two hole here at Red Rocks. Fit very nicely in that sort of manner where it's this huge open space. Let's just let Rick go off. California Magic, I love that song. That is that's like your Little Feet Dead inspired Goose song that just works really well in a summer shed with like people bobbing and weaving on the lawn. And then Animal, I felt like that was going to be played at some point. I've got to imagine for those guys, it was played similarly at Red Rocks in a similar slot. It's the kind of song that just like it works really well as a rock song
Mm.
in a venue like this. But the one thing I kept noticing during Animal was every time they had a shot of Ben, and I wonder if you could see this from your spot, Ryan, he would look up every so often. He was so focused on holding on the beat and what he was doing, but he would look up at the crowd and he just got this like shit-eating grin that would spread across his face. And like my wife and I were sitting here watching, our son was watching, and we were just like laughing every time it happened because you could tell he was just like in the middle of a song, in the middle of a groove, a really good Animal, like stretched out, didn't go too wild, but like, really good 18, 19-minute version. And
Mm.
he would just get these shots of, oh my God, there's 12,000 people out there. And he, in the moment, was like, at least it looked from afar, realizing what was happening. And I loved when they came back in after the peak, Rick just kind of held out, like this, he like restrained this one segment, got a little distorted, got a little weird, even as they went back into the Animal groove. And you could just tell that they were comfortable. They were really excited, but they
Mhm.
weren't rushing through anything. It felt like there was a lot of patience being played throughout last night.
Absolutely, Mike. Let's see if you're up now.
I'm back. I actually think the part where Colin's driving north and driving south at the same highway, so we're losing service at the beginning of the pod. That's where I was. So, Silver Rising was great. As I was saying, there's like an upstate New York dialogue. I loved hearing a new Goose fan asking his friend, like saying, like, "Hey, this is a great song. What's it about?" He said, "Bud, this is about a friggin' werewolf, bud." And I really loved that. That like really spoke to me. I've only seen the band on the West Coast, so it was nice to feel that. California Magic as a transplant out there, obviously.
Oh,
Every single person that was in like distance of me was saying, "Hey,
we apologize for the technical difficulties. It's that upstate New York cell service. Well, hopefully we get him back for the next part of the set. Well, let's move on here to Redbird and SOS. Colin, start us off with these two. First big jam of the night.
Yeah, that Redbird just kind of took off, and I think they had played that at the Glens Falls show as well.
Yes.
So at least the folks in my group kind of they've probably only seen Goose a handful of times, but one of the other shows was Glens Falls, so they were into it. And yeah, I think at the tail end of the Redbird, wasn't sure if it was ending or where it was going, but it just like kind of settled in, and the jam was really, really smooth.
Mm-hmm.
I think Brian, you had mentioned just like the patience. I think we saw some of it there as well. And then yeah, I mean, I'll let you two kind of dive more into the Redbird jam, but yeah, that was a highlight of the first set for sure. And kind of this like opened up the floodgates for improv that we'd see later in the second set.
100%. This Redbird was so good. You know, they kind of took their time with the type 1 portion of the jam, you know, really explored that space, and then it felt like it was fading out after that. It was like great, like cool 14-minute, you know, Redbird, whatever, solid in the first set. Then Rick revived it and into this cool funky groove. It was what really stuck out to me in this part, in addition to Peter's amazing vintage vibe and arpeggiator work, what he was doing there was Spud's on the popcorn snare. It's that smaller snare to the left of his hi-hat that has that punchier sound. It was just cutting right through the mix, and it sounded so good. And it was just an amazing, amazing groove. I love this. Not sure what it was like from the couch, Brian.
It was great, man. I mean, I it was one of those jams I kept thinking, I'm a big proponent of couch tour. I've got small kids, and webcasting is a huge way for me to just stay up to date on live music.
And you don't leave the state of Colorado.
I just refuse to. It's never going to happen. No, but there are certain jams that like will hit really hard at home and they'll hit really hard in the venue, and like it's just a really good jam. There are certain moments though in that Redbird, I kind of was thinking about it, like you need the echo off the ceiling. You need the echo, the way that it like spreads out through the lawn, and like there's space at that point in time. So I was pretty jealous of everyone who was getting that live in the moment. I feel like the Thatch that we'll get to in set 2 also probably had that sort of sentiment where it adds a layer of creepiness. It adds a layer of tension when a jam like that is being played in the moment right there in a room. But from the couch, I thought it was beautiful. The back half of Redbird kind of went into that like Eminence type jamming that I've been hearing throughout the year. It's like they're just playing around with that song and refuse to play it again, which I kind of like them teasing us on that. I would love to hear Eminence Front again, but the fact that like they're using those sort of synthy type of vibe, Rick gets a chance to like riff in a really intentional, clear way. That small snare that you're talking about from Ben, like it allows Jeff a ton of opportunity to really showcase what he's adding to the band, and like over the last year, like how much more pronounced his drums are and his percussion is throughout their
100%.
jamming. I love that kind of quiet, mellow space that they've been finding throughout the spring and early summer of this year. And I felt like it just, for them to be able to play, like you mentioned, Ryan, a really, really inspired and beautiful 14-minute Redbird, all based around the theme. They could have ended it there. Like, I don't think anybody would have faulted them in any sort of way, but then to add something else onto it and really just showcase what this band does really well is they're building a road while they're walking on it musically. It hit hard. I loved it. So yeah, I was big into the Redbird. Last thing, just because like I'm thinking about it from when I re-listened this morning.
Mm-hmm.
There was a moment where, and I felt like the mix was really good on this from the couch. You could hear the crowd, and I've got to imagine part of it was you all were loud as hell, which I totally understand. But there was a moment where they went into that second jam where you just heard this like churn of cheers throughout, like this swell that, again, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. That is when Fish plays an amphitheater and they go into a jam and you hear 20,000 people, 12,000 people, whatever it may be, cheer like that. It just, in fact, it's the reason why you keep going back. And you got that with Goose, and it was a very different sound from Goose playing a small theater or playing, a big club. It was the type of stuff that I feel like over the next couple of years we're going to hear a lot.
Awesome. All right, let's give Mike another attempt here.
I'm going to be pulling over in Saratoga Springs. Actually, might as well go back to the seat of the crime. Just because there's better service down this way. But I'm not gonna lie. So, having seen a lot of different shows at SPAC, I sort of had a question like, what's this set list gonna look like?
Yeah.
Sometimes what bands do is based on just the sheer size of it. Goose has played some late night shows. Like they've had like Hunger Site's been played on the radio quite a bit. 102.7 EQX like is kind of playing Hunger Site a little too much maybe. And so I'm like, oh man, are they just gonna like straight up play the quote like more general like hits, if you will? And I feel like as soon as I heard them go into like that deep 20-minute animal into a 20-minute redbird into like an almost 16-minute SOS, I was like, dude, these guys know exactly where they are. They know what crowd this is. Like they were playing to, like, as Brian alluded to earlier, like in that like 90s fish crowd that still lives in Saratoga and has not seen, that type of new band come in. And the animal was absolutely insane. I feel like I was watching the lawn like shake. Crazy thing at SPAC is that upper deck is known to like rock a little bit, sway a little bit. And this was my first time ever sitting directly underneath it. And so it is different vibe. When you're up on top, you're like, hell yeah, we're swinging this whole building. When you're below it, you're like, Jesus Christ, we're swinging this whole building. Like, it was really great. Redbird is just, as you guys alluded to, like that Glens Falls Civic Center, as it used to be called, Cool Insurance Arena, like that was a great Redbird. And I just felt like that was, again, the first set was, and by my opinion, pretty perfect. I felt like, going in to that set break, I just saw like people were like sweating and like kind of like delirious. Like the line for water. One cool thing at Saratoga is they're known for their spring water, and like they have all these great spots where you can fill up your water bottle. You're allowed to bring in water bottles. The line for water was arguably longer than the line for like cocktails and beer.
Good.
Because people were just like, dude, also Ryan, people, you could just tell, they're like, I gotta hydrate. Like, I'm in for it. Like,
yeah,
I felt that was a really cool experience, rounding out that first set. I'm completely impressed. And I guess I should say I'm not surprised that the band blows me away every time I see them, but I was actually pretty surprised that they knew the venue. They picked the perfect set list.
Yeah.
It worked great. I know you're a little bummed that you didn't get your Moby.
Things have to get cut, and all things considered last night, I can't complain. But Moby is due, and it will make its return someday, and hopefully I will be there.
Berta gave me the set list last night. I don't know.
I think that's the only thing that got cut from the first set, and then I believe they cut Drive from the second.
Drive and Western.
Yes, and Shama
well.
Encore. But let's talk about set break here a little bit. We go into set break with this amazing SOS closer, which is such one of the best set closers in the Goose catalog. I love this song live so much. I was so excited when it started. But set break, went around, said hi to some people, saw Neil, good friends Brendan and Becca. I'm missing other people that we saw, and I apologize if I'm forgetting to mention you. But it was just like, again, more of that family vibe. Like, it's like everyone's here, like people are so excited. Like, what a first set. Really looking forward to the second set. I do want to shout out Dean Novin, or Dean, who is Goose the Band Trivia. He made clav tweet pins, and I handed them out to a bunch of people last night, which was really exciting. I loved being able to do that. So thank you, Dean. Very kind of you. But set break was fun. Vibes were really high going into the second set. Really excited. But before we dive into the second set, Colin, how are you feeling at set break last night?
Good. So I think at that point, Coach had come out with his
with Bodie,
son as well. Yeah, and was like interacting with the fans, and that was cool. And then at that point, I think I noticed the modified American flag, and was like, where have I seen that before? And that was kind of off side stage, but it was from that. It was the same flag from the Visuto house video, and that I was like, man, yeah, this is really cool. Like the night just kept getting more special, and seeing stuff like that, and it kind of brought back, like Ryan, when you were talking about it, feeling more like a family and just like a really, really like giant gathering. So that was, set break was really cool to like acknowledge that kind of stuff.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up the coach thing. I wanted to mention that, like, I was kind of far up in the pavilion when that happened, but I saw, I think my dad pointed out, like, or someone pointed out, coach was on stage with Bodie, and I looked over, and it was kind of far away, but I could just feel the joy that Coach had in that moment. Like Goose is playing SPAC. Here he is with his son, like on stage at set break, like just such an exciting moment. And yeah, I noticed that flag early on in the first set, and I was like, oh, like I know exactly where that thing is from. Like, that's in the background of the Vasuto video. If anyone is curious what video we're talking about, there's video from 7/7/2013, the last time Vasuto ever played, which was a Fish after party at SPAC. So pretty crazy that a decade to the day, Goose, played their first show at SPAC. And so there was like a modified American flag in the background of that one. And Coach had it hanging on Video World last night, which is just, incredibly special for all of them. Mike, how are you feeling at set break last night?
It's feeling really good. Left my seats, went up to the lawn just to kind of get a vibe check of like how many. It feels like 1 million people are here. How many people are actually here? And was really impressed that people were trying to not lose their spot, on the lawn. So, everyone kind of brings a blanket that's sort of safe and home base, and you like leave all your stuff there. And, ran into Ben, one of the managers of Goose, 11, said what up to him. Very cool. He's like, oh yeah, you're the dude from the Warfield. I was like, wow, that's a good memory, man. So right on for Ben. But no, it was great. Again, I can't help but put it in personal terms. It just felt super personal for me to run into friends from college that I haven't seen in 15, 16 years. I heard Brian saying like he has young kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. So I'm not exactly following this band around, like you are, Ryan, but very cool to like share a band that I discovered living in California, in my hometown with some old friends. That was very, very cool to see that even though we hadn't been in touch, we'd sort of, kept pace with our musical tastes. And, we saw a lot of Umphrey shows together back in the day, and very cool to see them. And then going into the second set, I think my father-in-law texted me. He's like, these guys are going to blow this place apart. It's done. So
here we go. Yeah.
He's a good hype man for the band.
Love it. Love it. Brian, do you have any thoughts? Couch tour set break is different than being at the show set break, but how are you feeling at set break?
It was good. I loved the first set. I felt, we've talked about these like level up shows that the band has had over the last year. I feel, I jumped on in 2019, so like I don't have the, I wasn't seeing them at festivals in the mid 2010s, but there's a sense of, I don't want to say ownership, but there's a sense of like you feel there's a lot of emotions about discovering a band at that stage and then seeing them have these levels of success. And I remember webcasting here, the Radio City shows, and like feeling a great deal of stress when Trey walked out on stage. Like, I hope everything goes right. This is a lot of eyes. There's a lot going on here. I remember at Red Rocks last year, it was I've been to Red Rocks countless times. It was the most electric pre-show feeling I've ever had at a Red Rock show. And there were a lot of people there clearly seeing Goose for the first time. This weekend, 2 years ago, I saw my first Goose shows, the Sculpture Park shows here in Denver, which I believe the first night was at the time their biggest show. And then they released a bunch of tickets and it was their next biggest show. And, at all these steps of the process, it's always felt like, I really hope that I want the best for this band. I know whatever that means. And this was the first time where it just felt like and it might be because you guys are talking about how many people had been there who'd been to multiple Goose shows and have been a part of this for years now. It felt like they owned the room, and it felt like they came across on the webcast. So I don't know, man. I threw the baseball around with my son in the backyard, listened to some music, and then heard the cheer come back on and raced over to see what they were going to open up with, only to get, and I don't want to get us too deep into set two, but I just want to give our host here a proper shout out after he got his amazing shout out at
Thank you.
His fair band, at Goose's biggest show. I just like, again, I don't want to compare, but if you go back to early 90s Fish shows, there are moments where they're shouting out their friends and they're shouting out people who are very important to the band at that point in time. And as someone who considers you a good friend, who loves podcasting with you, collaborating with you, to hear you get a shout out going into the second set of the show, it just filled like like to not be there, but to like still get those moments, incredibly special stuff. So
Thank you, Brian.
it was all good vibes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Brian. So Ryan was also at Dead and Co. So between Dead
Yes.
and Co. and a first set of Goose, I had 3 sets to introduce Ryan as the newest contributor to Mountain Gazette, and everyone's like, "Wow, this is sick!" He's like the almost famous kid. This is great. This is great. This is great. So then when he gets the shout out, I'm not gonna lie, Jeff made me look really good because I had just introduced Storm to like 50 of my friends. They're like, "Holy crap, he is the almost famous kid," you know? Like I found that to be really great. John, our art director's like, "Dude, where is this kid gonna be in 20 years?" So that was a good
Still
moment
seeing
for,
Goose.
yeah.
Yeah, man, it was really cool. Brian, your point about it felt like they were ready for the room, and that there weren't like growing pains going in. Again, another thing I talked about in my written piece about last night was my first Goose show was Goose Miss at Mohegan, and that felt like again a lot of people's first show. Kind of a are they going to pull off the arena sound? Are they going to pull off playing in an arena? Last night didn't feel like that. As I mentioned before, last night felt like they came on stage, they were ready. And also, I think the band, they're more familiar with SPAC as a venue than they were somewhere like Red Rocks, playing there for the first time. Growing up, seeing shows at SPAC, so many different shows at SPAC, and then being on the stage, there's a lot less of, I guess a learning curve or growing pains again, like, making that switch than there is like going to Colorado or, playing the Greek in LA where it's like, maybe they've never been to that venue before, but all of them had been to SPAC and all of them had seen shows at SPAC. And so there's a lot more of a sense of familiarity for them as people, which also I think helped open up the show a little more and open up the music. They're taking a huge step up venue wise, but the music came naturally because of that sense of, we know our way around this place. This is not new territory. It's like for a band, but as people, we know SPAC. They can handle SPAC. Yeah. You got anything to add before?
No, I think that's a good point. I think that also like it speaks to how big 2022 was for the band and how their gear seems to be on a stronger side. The crew seems to know how to play to these rooms as well. So it felt less like, can they do this? And this is now where they belong. And it started me thinking like, oh my God, all these venues across America that Goose is going to start playing at. It's crazy.
Yeah. So let's talk about this Empress here. This is a song that we can see in that Vasudo video from 2013. We see Rick, Trevor, Jeff, and Matt Campbell just ripping on Empress, which is pretty cool. Matt was there last night too. Absolutely amazing guy. Shout out to Matt's dad, who is an avid listener of the pod, which was really amazing to learn. But this Empress comes out of the gate hot, amazing way to open set too. As soon as it started, I was like, oh yeah, why didn't I pick this on fantasy? Like that was dumb. Obviously they were going to play Empress at this show. But it was amazing. Rick seemed to have picked up a couple of things on Empress from playing it with Jake last weekend. But they went for it straight into this amazing minor key groove that just got darker and darker and darker. Like, I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. Let's start with you on this one, Mike. What were you thinking about this Empress? Mike, are you there?
I'm here. Man, I got to say, Ryan, one of the fun parts about following you on social media is that you do put things in context, and like I love that Vasudo callback. Like, I just think one of the things that makes this band special, and I know we're kind of beating a dead horse here, but like they really do know how to like meet the moment and like make a few people feel really special around them, and then that makes it just like it grows and it grows and grows. I thought the Empress, it was a perfect opener, and I think the funny thing is it went into the David Gray cover.
Yeah,
which I've really been enjoying, and also like I'm pretty sure David Gray like opened up for John Mayer at SPAC, and I think like yeah, dude, like I'm pretty like I was like, damn,
it's got
like,
layers.
I was just like, damn, these guys like they know what's up here. And like I asked Rick afterwards, and he's like, oh yeah, dude. He's like, David Crazy played Spell. I was like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. Like, how did you guys?
They
I
do
don't know.
they do their research. I love it. I love it.
They do their research, and I mean, I've watched them, in Tahoe, like build out with the spreadsheet, like how they're gonna pick things, and like it is not haphazard. It's pretty thoughtful. They're like texting it to each other. They have a group text, and they're just like sharing, kind of like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? And I just, again, playing music is one thing, but performing it and just understanding the vibe is a whole other thing. So yeah, I really loved it. I thought it was a great second set opener.
Awesome. Colin, over to you.
Yeah, just a great way to open the second set, and then the gradual build to the darkness or the darker jam. Just like my buddy Wanting, who I went to, who was also in our group, just like it blew his mind. He's like, he hasn't really listened to that much dark Goose,
Right.
but he was just like his mind was just blown by them kind of adventuring into the darker jams and how that just adds a different element to their improvisation. So it's really cool to see that, and then have that just drop back into the brightness of the outro section of the song. So
Mhm.
it was like this being able to look around the venue and just see everyone kind of just like singing along
And doing the clapping.
and
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that I think Mike had mentioned before, like you could really feel the balcony bouncing at that point, which was really cool. It just added to the moment, and it was really special for that song specifically to open the second set. So it started kind of just like the second set was near perfect in terms of like I know we'll talk about some of these songs, but it was like jam, kind of like jam ballad, which would just was like
Yeah.
they nailed that.
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, that moment, when Peter turns to the crowd and, put his hands above his head, like for the chorus, like, I mean, just the energy. And I was looking around as everyone was clapping, and I was like, again, like, at the beginning of the show, I had the same thing, but it was like, holy shit, like this many people are here for Goose. Like, this is unbelievable. So cool.
Well, and they know what happens at that point in the song.
Exactly.
Like it's not just 12,000
people
people
weren't
that happen
surprised
to
at
be
the
there.
crowd participation. Yeah.
Yeah. Empress is I'm really loving it in a second set opening slot. It tends to feel to me like a like kind of the perfect set closer, but I really like it in that slot because it is just like you're immediately in it. Those chords hit, you're right there. It's a special song for me. It was the song that like I tried for maybe 18 months to get my wife to really jump on board with me with Goose. I was like, we met because of Fish. We've loved Fish for 25 years as a
Yeah.
couple, and I was just like, this is real. Like I'm not just like getting into another band. Like this is the real thing. And it took a while. She had a question. She had her like, well, I don't want another band. I've got my band. What's going on here? And then she heard Empress and she was like, if a band can write a song like this with this sort of sentiment and like make me just smile the whole time, like I'm in. And now we're, going to shows together and stuff. So like hearing that open that set again, fit the moment, fit the vibe. I really loved, it's there. That's Trevor's showcase. He gets that moment to everyone else quiets down, and the unspoken bassist in sunglasses who looks like the coolest guy in the room when he's hanging out there gets like his moment to completely shine. Everybody goes crazy. Then you get Peter clapping with everyone, and the jam, these new dark jams that they've been going to, it reminded me to an extent of the Eugene version from earlier this year. That is one of
Yeah.
my favorite jams of 2023 so far. And just hearing a song like Empress that could be played completely straight and hit really, really hard, to hear it have that space, to hear it continue to jam, it gives you the sense of like how far has Goose come, but how much further can they go from a musical standpoint?
Far.
Because they're still, they're still like figuring out what's inside of these songs and what parts can be broken apart and what parts can be experimented on and stretched out. And you could hear that happening last night across a number of really big songs.
Yeah. Very well put. Then we get Please Forgive Me, as Mike mentioned, David Gray cover. I thought it was interesting, as the one cover that they played in the show. Shama was on the set list for the encore. But as the one cover they chose to play last night, I was curious why it was Please Forgive Me. But I guess now that, Mike gave the background on David Gray playing SPAC and, that was on the band's radar, then, it makes sense now. But then we get Thatch, which obviously we all should have seen coming. It doesn't matter that they only played it a few shows ago. Like, this is Thatch. They're playing it back. We're going to get a Thatch. And oh boy, what a Thatch this was. Collab tweets were happening, people. They happened multiple times in this jam. Peter was the star of the show here, in addition to obviously Jeff, who just crushes every single version of Thatch. But that what Peter was doing, initially, they get into this really low-key funk groove, kind of like the Warfield version. But then they take it in this major key direction, thanks to Peter. He kind of modulates it like that, and then just they built from there, and it was amazing. Like I was, I actually my leg, I kind of injured my leg a little bit during Thatch, just like dancing and jumping so much. So it was that good. But start us off on this, Colin.
Yeah, you called out Jeff and Peter, but Trevor, at least in the balcony, sounded so good. He was like turned up like perfectly. And what he was, I think he was like, he had started out with kind of the slap groove, and then like then eventually like back to the normal playing. But man, he sounded so good throughout this one. But yeah, I mean, Peter was a highlight as well. But man, that was huge. And I think that was the tequila tease.
Yes.
The song that had the tequila tease in it.
Yes.
Yeah. That was, you could just feel it in the crowd, like people picking up on it, and it was really cool to kind of have that layered in there as well.
Yeah. Amazing. Mike, what did you think of the Thatch?
Got to see Thatch the Warfield. Was bummed I missed the debut of Thatch in Glens Falls. Just a short drive up the Adirondack Northway. And as they started playing the opening riff, John Coleman, our art director from Mountain Gazette, looked over at me and he goes, "I think it's official. Thatch is an upstate New York anthem. Like, this is our song. This is our song. Like, we're always going to get this every year they play here." And I mean, it just, that, similar to
Goose shows, you're getting
similar.
it back.
Yeah. I mean, similar to Animal in the first set, like every part of that crowd was losing their mind, like, and just, I do think the nice thing about Thatch, as you guys mentioned, is like Trevor and I like that comment. Thatch should be the American national anthem, to be honest. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I'd love to play a 20-minute Thatch before a baseball game. That'd be awesome.
Keep standing.
That'd be really, yes. I think that, man, they just, like, for people that have not seen the band on a song like Thatch, like, that is where you see, like, it's not just Rick's band. It's not just Peter. Like, you realize there's 3 other members of the band, and they're all very effing talented. And I think that is like a nice turning point for new Goose fans, in my opinion, because I remember when I kind of was turned on to the rest of the band, was like, damn, these guys play really well together, but like individually they can all shine on their own.
Yeah.
I mean,
the Thatch is amazing.
It's just such a good riff. And I guess the last thing I'll say is, like, this band is about to have an even more massive catalog than they already have. Like, I can't believe just how many songs, Rick and Matt are able to crank out. Peter's able to crank out. Like, the fact that, like, I mean, Thatch isn't even a year old. We're already talking about, like, what's the best Thatch, and it's, like, kind of hard to pick. I find that just to be so impressive. You don't really see that with many other bands.
Yeah, I'm back in the 50% club for Thatch after last night, so I've seen 10 of the 20 versions that have been played so far. Brian, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think first and foremost, the two songs I was most shocked were not played last night were Drive and Wisteria. They felt like just kind of gimmies for me based on the venue, based on the setting, based on, the significance of the show. And I kind of figured when Please Forgive Me was winding down that we were about to get a Wisteria. It just felt like the right, slot for that. And then they go into Thatch, and it reminded me of something that Mike's talking about this like evolving and growing catalog. That you have a song like Thatch that like I still remember the first version of that being like, the hell that just was written, that just debuted. What is going on
What
right
is this
now?
song?
Yeah, and like I was just at a band that like one of the things that originally attracted me to Goose was that they wrote, um, songs that felt like something the National would have written or Spoon would have written or a bunch of indie rock bands I love, but then they jammed them for 18 to 26 minutes. And you got this sense of this is what Heartland indie rock sounds like if it's jammed out. And like that hits me exactly where my musical zone was when I was listening, when I was first discovering Goose. Thatch sounds like Goose writing almost like a King Crimson type of song. Like it has that prog rock type of feel. It's very evil. It's got a lot of arrogance to it. I don't think that you can
Yeah.
play a song with a riff like that, with lyrics like that, if you're not a little bit arrogant. And if you're not a little bit arrogant, like you're not going to own 12, 20,000 people in an evening. Like you kind of just have to have that in your soul. And it's really cool to see that unleashed by this band. The version though, like I love the summer camp version. I love the Warfield version. This one, the thing that really drew me to it, and I'm going to continue going back and listening to it to try to like understand it more, but there's a democratic jamming approach to it. Like when they get, it happened in the Redbird too, when they get quiet and they're not, nobody is,
Leading. Yeah.
yeah, like Goose is really good at peaking a jam. Really, really good. That is one of the best things that they can do, and that is a lot harder than it sounds. There's a lot of bands that try to do the tension and release thing and don't hit it with the power that Goose does. A lot of that, to your point, Ryan, comes down to the rhythm section. Mike, you said it. This is not just a 2-person band thing. This is a 5-person band. But when a band gets really quiet and they're still completely locked in, that's when things get really special for me. And you heard that in that middle section of Thatch, to go into Tequila and to not just make that become then a song we're segueing into, like that is a section, and then is going to lead to another section where we kind of dement and distort this idea. It was a thrilling jam. And, to have that be kind of the centerpiece to the second set was really cool, seeing as that's a song that's just over 6 months old at this point in time. I mean, just unreal.
Really, really crazy. How good this song is every single time it's played. Thatch. Then the second set closes with This Old Sea into Dripfield. I was so excited about This Old Sea. Last night was show number 36, and it was my first This Old Sea that I have ever seen. And so I was like over the moon about it. And lack of jam, whatever. It was beautiful, and I was really, really happy about that. My most common not seen is now Loose Ends in terms of Goose originals. But I mean, I was so happy. And
that's
then
one they'll
Dripfield,
tease for you and then not play.
Exactly. I've gotten multiple Loose Ends teases. So, eventually I'll get it. But Dripfield was just, I mean, it was Dripfield. It was amazing. The first time I heard Dripfield was at my first show, debuting at Mohegan Sun, and it was like this song was made for the big rooms, right? The way that the drums hit in Dripfield, Ben and Jeff just like going at it with each other, like just amazing. And last night they did it again in an outdoor shed. It was just, the energy was incredible. They were crushing it. The only time Peter played guitar all night was during Dripfield. So we got some great 2-guitar Goose action there. And I mean, it was just an incredible, incredible way to end the set. The way it was mentioned earlier as well, with the, jam, ballad, jam kind of trend in the second set. But there we go. We got him back. Let's throw it over to you, Colin, here. This Old Sea, Dripfield.
Oh man, This Old Sea. So glad that came back in 2020. Always happy to see that pop up in any set, and heard that during sound check and got super stoked for that to be played.
Mhm.
And then Dripfield, man, just cool, but kind of the perfect way to end the set. and then leaving the drone sound there as well. So again, this perfect execution of that second set. And I don't, I think they might have cut a few songs, but the flow and song choice were just spot on for the moment. And there were some really good audibles there. So props to the band.
Awesome. Mike, your thoughts on Sea Drip?
So one of the things that SPAC has been doing the last couple of years is selling a $199 season pass to the lawn.
Yeah.
So you can go see anything. And I think, I know we talked about, the top of the show, like some shorter versions. This Old Sea coming in just under 6 minutes. Again, I'm going to point to the band and say, like, well done. That's knowing that there are some people in that crowd who have season passes to the lawn and probably needed a break after that match. And it's nice to give people a breather. I thought that was great. Never seen a drip field at a Goose show, so was very, very happy. Such a complex, complicated track, like just absolutely love it. And like, I feel like it kind of shows like the technicality of the band a little bit. I can't believe we haven't spoken about this. We're almost an hour in, but the lights were like just nuts. When they started. I mean, the sun hadn't set. It just rained a little bit. And man, like as soon as it went dark, the lights went absolutely crazy. I heard almost as many people speaking about the light show. Back in our section, we were in section 8. Man, there were some old school Fish fans that had brought maybe 10,000 glow sticks, and the glow sticks were getting chucked all around, like forwards, backwards, left, right. Like at one point, someone handed me 50 glow sticks, and I thought, I played baseball, why not? And just fired them up, hoping that I could send them 100 yards towards Ryan Storm, but didn't hit him. So, but yeah, drip field. I mean, that was it. I mean, at that point, I know it sounds funny when we know there's an encore coming, but you're like, wow, I could walk out now. As some people tend to do at SPAC, but I didn't see very many people, leaving. It's quite a difficult venue to get out of if you're trying to get out of there quickly. Mm-hmm. And usually people they're like, okay, this is it. I mean, no one left during drip field.
Right.
Very few people, and I just found that to be, again, a testament to how well the band had captured the audience that night.
Yeah, Getty was also grown in a lab by the jam band Illuminati. Thank you, Andrew Duddy, for that. Brian, what's your take on the end of this second set here?
Well, I mean, I'll just add to the lights because I was really surprised. I mean, they're always great, but like the band has played so many different size venues throughout the year so far. You think about like the Athens show where it was like all really like condensed and confined. I feel like the Bozeman shows,
Eugene and Boise as well, under
Eugene
1,000.
And Boise, yeah, and then we've had bigger sized rooms where like it seems like the stage setup is all kind of geared towards that 3,000 to 5,000 person venue right now. Everything seemed expanded here, and the lights, rather than being underwhelming, were the exact opposite. It was like he always was meant to do lights in a room like that. And it was one of my biggest takeaways when I saw them 2 years ago this weekend out here. Was I really wondered going into the show, is Goose going to be able to fill up this space? Is the production going to be able to match, what that Sculpture Park field looks like? You're at a mini festival type of setting. Are they going to be able to match that? And the lights completely did that. And I think, to Colin and Mike's points, like Drip Field is the perfect song to play in that setting, in that slot. It's the only aspect of the Red Rock show that I still kind of curse, is that it's on the set list and somehow they didn't play Drip Field there. I would get it 4 months later here at Goose Miss. Yeah, I would imagine it's going to be played out here in October over 2 nights. But I don't know, just amazing. And then for them to walk off the stage, and immediately sharing texts with friends of, okay, they've got like 25 minutes until curfew. We're getting something big. I was thinking either Elmeg or I was thinking Factory Fiction.
Yeah,
obviously we got the latter. But yeah, just This Old Sea, very, very impactful early ballad to hear from this band. Ryan, you and I have talked about, certain Goose songs not needing to be 20, 25 minutes from time to time. I think we would both agree This Old Sea has provided some of our favorite jams over the last couple of years,
Yes.
but it is cool to hear that song just as an isolated ballad and just have all of the lyrics be the focus. And it's not, this is a pretty song that also leads to a jam. This has a aching, beautiful, longing sort of feeling to it, and that's the only thing that you're getting out of it, and that was pretty cool to get.
Very, very well put, as always. And yeah, your point about going into the encore, it was either going to be El Meg or Factory Fiction. At this point in the show, I was like, it has to be Factory Fiction. Like, soundcheck notwithstanding, it's like, the Visuto thing. Factory Fiction is a Visuto song. Matt Campbell played it with them at Fred Fest in 2021. And it's like, yeah, like that's going to be the encore. And they came out for it. Rick hit that first like grimy chord, and everyone just like cheered. Like, it was an immediate recognition from the crowd, immediate burst of energy, and people were just so excited. They also did something really unique with the jam, that they haven't done before. Kind of getting to the end of the song, they like slowed it down and then kind of restarted going into the jam, which again, I mentioned, Ben driving jams earlier in the night. This was him. Like, he just crushed into this aggressive beat, and it got dark. And it was awesome. The way this jam started, and then obviously built back up to the ending of Factory Fiction, and just the end, the energy right at the end of the show. As you mentioned, Mike, people tend to leave the show early, skip out on the encore, whatever, try to beat the traffic. It felt like not a single person left the building. Everybody was cheering on their feet as the band came to take a bow. Getty put Goose up in the lights over top of them, which was great. But man, just, the perfect encore pick. Let's throw it over to you here, Colin. What did you think?
Yeah, and Peter's speech kind of preceding the Factory Fiction was awesome too. Like, got the crowd all kind of like fired up, and then went right into the rager that is Factory Fiction. And then wasn't sure if Factory Fiction wasn't going to continue there for a little bit, and they kind of worked their way down to build it back up. But yeah, very unique, and like the crowd was super into it. I think we talked about it before, but like just cheering the jam, cheering the lyrics, like everyone was super engaged, just fired up for this special tune.
Yeah. Mike, what about you for the encore?
That encore was arms in the air, back arched, like folks screaming in the air. SPAC has some really serious, like former principals, former cops that work as security guards there. That's where I ran into a couple of my teachers. They were not messing with anyone. People were dancing in the aisles. It was totally fine. I found that to be, again, like capturing your audience, including the security guards, were like, we couldn't stop this madness if we had to. And again, like that's just it was such a unique. Brian, I've been really taken by your thoughts about like, could they fill this venue? I always forget how big that venue is every time. I always just assume it's a little smaller than it is, but it's not. It's massive, and that was a full-on packed house party ender, and I felt like almost like people were like satisfied and also just being like, dude, can this just go on for like 24 more hours? Like, let's just keep going.
Yeah,
like
let's not leave.
I did hear that there was quite a scene in the parking lot afterwards. Like, people hung out, they talked about the show. I ran into Naveed. I mean, they sold out of most of their merch in the first hour of the show. Like,
wow.
So there was nothing left. I mean, I saw Naveed afterwards and was like, hey man, like, I'd love to get a poster. He's like, dude, those things are super gone. like long gone. But yeah. I mean, that it ended, and I think I probably looked down at my phone for the first time in like 20-30 minutes and saw like a ton of texts from friends watching at home, friends there, and they're just like, holy shit, I can't believe we're part of this. Like, we got to watch this, and that's kind of how I felt too. It felt like a really good run. It's we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of when I met the band and wrote about them for the first time, and they were at a little venue in South Lake Tahoe, a smaller room they played last year. and I got to spend a lot of time with not just the band, but also coach and a lot of the folks that work behind the scenes. And I couldn't help but when the show ended and like the applause kept going and they took their bow, like I didn't only feel good for the five guys on stage. Like I felt great for
The whole
coach,
crew.
you know,
Yeah.
for Sam King, who, you know, the tour manager, who's just always there, like for, you know, their management group, like for their fans. Like I just felt like this is cool that they nailed it. They were given the opportunity, they were given the moment, and now I'm left sort of wondering at the end of that show, is Goose going to be a staple of SPAC the way Dead and Company has been the last few years? You know,
Let's hope. I would love
could
to. I
only
would love
hope.
to go back to Goose it's back next year. I think that would be awesome. Let's throw it over to you, Brian, here for the encore. Your take.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I mean, this band is so lucky to have someone like Peter as kind of the faux frontman of it, because his his sentiments, his enthusiasm was so contagious, and always is. But like, you know, him coming out and just being like, I got some things to say, and everybody starts yelling, you know, starts cheering, because they know that when Peter speaks, like he's speaking from the heart. And to have him talk about, you know, a bunch of us have been up on that lawn seeing shows here, how special this was, just,
Mhm.
you know, it got you, really got the feels. Factory Fiction is such a unique song in Goose's catalog, because I think any other band would play that song every other night. It is one of their best songs. It is infectious in, you know, multiple moments. It jams. It's got this chorus that sounds like an earworm you've definitely heard before, but like then you realize it's a original by the band. I mean, there's just so much to it, and the band saves it for these really special moments. I've seen it twice. It encored my favorite Goose show I've seen to date, night 2 of the Mission back in 2021. And that felt at the time like a really big moment for the band, closing out an incredibly strong tour, selling out the Mission on a Sunday and Monday night before a holiday weekend.
Mhm.
Knowing that they would come back and they would be playing Red Rocks. And then I saw it at Goose Miss last year, and just every time it's played, it just takes over the entire room. And to give themselves that amount of space to play one of their best songs in the encore, and essentially give like a quasi third set to fans. You know, a lot of encores, they'll come out, they'll play like a 5, 6, maybe 10-minute long song. Here we get 20 minutes with substantial jamming, a new take on the song, and then the bow at the end. And the way that, you know, when the show shows up on Bandcamp the next morning, it's the shot from behind them of the entire crowd, just to reemphasize like something really big happened here. And this is going to be a show that, based on the way they played it, based on the setting, this is going to be documented by the band going forward, and documented by fans. And everything about that just closed out really, really nicely. And I don't know, man. It's really wild to you know, there's a lot of chatter about this band in the world right now.
Yes.
We've heard it all. We have it with our friends, both, you know, very positive vibes here on this call. We obviously, there's a lot of discourse around this band right now. What it comes down to is it's 5 dudes who seem to love each other, who seem to absolutely love playing music, and their fans. Dude, you could see it from the first 10 rows all the way back to the lawn, people just losing their minds like that. Just, I don't know how you could disagree with any of that, or, you know, have it take any issue with that. It's just an amazing thing to see it happen in real time.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Brian. It's a perfect way to end off our episode today. Thank you, Brian, Colin, and Mike, for coming on this, you know, very long episode, longer than some sets that we've seen recently. But really amazing to talk about this really special night. You know, Goose plays again in just under an hour at Levitate. We do not have a lead on a stream as of right now, but, you know, check out the Always Almost There socials. Keep your eye out there. We will share if we do get wind of a stream. And that brings us to the end of, you know, Goose Summer Tour. They've got one more gig at the end of July at Newport Folk Fest. But, you know, this is a hell of a way to finish off. You know, I know some of us have other bands that we like to podcast about and follow that are starting a tour in a few days, which,
Who? What?
yeah,
What?
no one else. But thank you to these two bands for coordinating and not really overlapping.
Thank you so much, guys.
Much appreciated.
Spring was really hard for some of us.
April April
in a
was
good
tough.
way.
Yes, exactly. We were spoiled. But thank you again, you three gentlemen. It's been a pleasure talking about last night, reliving the amazing, amazing experience with all of you. Travel safe, Colin and Mike. Brian, enjoy the beautiful Colorado day.
Can I just say one last time, Ryan
Yeah.
Storm, where you at?
Thank you. Right here. Oh, man.
Thank you, dude. This was great.
Yeah, thanks for having
Thanks,
us,
Ryan.
buddy.
Well, thank you, everybody, so much for tuning into this episode of Always Almost There. Day after show. We'll be back tomorrow, stream/Borfs/guest pending, but we will likely be back tomorrow at 3:30 for our last day after show of the tour. And of course, there will be a very, very, very lengthy full tour recap episode coming at you at some point later this summer. So get excited for that. But without further ado, we're going to head out. I'm going to go take a shower because, I got home right before the pod. And everybody, enjoy the rest of your weekend this afternoon. Enjoy the weather. It's nice here. Hopefully it's nice where everybody is. Looks nice. I'm rambling now, so I'm going to end off the episode. Don't forget to follow Always Almost There at AAT Goose Pod. Let us know, if we forgot to talk about your favorite part of last night, what your favorite part of last night was, and, your favorite parts of summer tour. Let's get that ball rolling, as we wrap up. But have a phenomenal weekend. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow.